Namaste. Welcome, beautiful souls. Let's turn to the black suits, the wands and the swords, and have a look at how we might interpret these cards in a reading in the Minchiate Tarot. Also, I want to have a look today at the differences between what we might experience in reading a Tarot de Marseille versus the Minchiate, because in these two suits, they do look quite different, particularly the swords. We'll also have a brief overview of the associated major arcana. And I know I did that with the cups and the coins, but one of the things I want to address is how the energy of these black suits may influence the major arcana when they show up in a reading together in a different way. And a warm welcome to all of you. My name is Sadhana. I am new to the Minchiate Tarot and just really fascinated with this 97 card deck and hope to be reading with it as a working deck very soon. If you read with the Tarot de Marseille, you will recognize that in the suit of Baton and the suit of Wands, the cards look very similar to the Tarot de Marseille, and this is the Tarot de Marseille by Pablo Robleda that is on the table. And you can see that we have a hand. The same hand is holding the Ace of Wands. There is a ribbon in the case of the Minchiate, and you can also see the energy of the fire radiating from the wand, or the yod if you're interpreting it that way. There is a crown in the Minchiate, not in the Tarot de Marseille. And also we have this very masculine energy with the Ace of Wands. We have the narrow part of the stick at the bottom and widening as it goes to the top, indicating the female organ at the top. And in the rest of the cards, they look very similar. The Two of Wands is a cross. The Three is a cross with a wand through it. The Four and the Five are in the same pattern without the floral embellishments. And you can see that the ribbon continues in the Ace, the Two, the Three, but not the Four and the Five. As for animals and other characters in the suit of Wands, only in the Two. And you can see that in the suit of Swords, the pattern is the same as in the suit of Batons. We do not have the curved swords like we have in the Tarot of Marseille. And you'll note that we have a lot more fauna friends in the suit of Swords than in the suit of Wands. And I know that I've mentioned this many times, that in the game of Minchiate, the black suits do score differently than the red suits. So in the black suits, the strongest card is in the 10 of the suit. And here, looking at the suit of Wands in the Minchiate Bamarzo, you can see that we have a fairly light color in the Ace 2, 3, 4, 5. But as we ascend through the higher numbers, there is a darker color, the darkest being at the 10 of Wands, signifying the most valuable minor in this particular suit. This is something that I think is really interesting to sit with, why the most valuable card in the black suits is the 10, the 9, the 10. So in the game, a 10 of Wands would capture a 2 or a 3 of Swords or Baton. And how this all works, I'm not exactly sure, because I wonder if a 2 of Wands and a 2 of Swords carries the same value as a 9 of Cups and a 9 of Coins. It's all very interesting, and I don't know how much this is going to play into a reading, but something to remember about the value and the weight of the energy of the black suits versus the red suits. Both the Ace of Wands and the Ace of Swords pierce through a crown that has ribbons. You can see that in the Minchiate Florentine, the suit of Wands is held in a different hand than in the other decks, and in all of these decks, the Ace of Swords is held in the left hand. And this is something that I have mentioned in other videos before, and I want you to think about the hand in terms of dominance and what holding a sword or a baton in a certain hand may represent. And I think the meaning of that will become clearer with the surrounding cards. You may also want to be aware of the querent's hand of dominance, because that might play into the reading as well. With the number 1, we may have a correspondence with the Magician card, the Hermit, the element of water, or Pisces. And so, how might you view the Magician card differently with the Ace of the red suits versus the Ace of the black suits? And I'm thinking that with the Magician and these particular suits, I'm going to be focusing on the Magician, whereas the other suits, it feels like the area of focus may be the children that are in the picture. And I believe in all of the Magician cards that was the case. There are some viewers, people who are receiving the energy of the Magician. These are active suits, so we know that should an ace show up with any of these cards, that it's going to amplify the active nature of that card. What feels really unusual here is that we have 2 water cards, both the water element card and the mutable suit of Pisces. And with these strong aces showing up in a reading with either of these 2 cards, it may feel like a sense of confidence in moving towards and moving into any sort of watery issues, moving into any issues of the heart, emotions, or spirit. And though we tend to associate the Hermit card with the element of earth, there's a tremendous amount of reflection and spiritual energy in this card. And so while these are certainly strong, masculine, solar kind of aces, it feels that their quality of spirit is reflected in all of the major arcana that have an association with the number 1. Another thing that comes to mind in both the 11th arcanum and the 21st is this idea of initiating, taking a step forward on a solo journey, an emotional one, a very personal inward journey. One of the things I want to pay attention to in a reading with a predominance of swords and wands is that we have some grounding energy. And the fact that the earth element card is connected to the number 2 feels very important here. That I would want to see important earth element cards such as this show up in a reading to help with any lack of focus, scattered energy, or a resistance to grounding. Whether the second arcanum you are using is the Grand Duke or a queen or one that looks more like a high priestess, I feel that this is a similar connection to what I was saying with the spiritual energy that I was sensing with the majors associated with the number 1. So remember that when we're with the numbers 1, 2, and 3, we are in a really high frequency when we're speaking Kabbalistically, when we're building in any sort of chakra connections or spiritual energy. And so I quite like how this pairs up here. We have the Aquarius card, the Water Bearer, and the Hanged One. Now, the Aquarius card is the element of air, and yet we do have the water symbol here. Aquarius journeys through water, journeys through air, and I think reflecting on both of those feels important in terms of this card. And when I look at, so over here on the far right is the Minchiate El Signo, part of Los Scarabaeo's Anima Antiqua series. It looks an awful lot like a temperance card, and I would want to pay attention to that card showing up in a reading. The Hanged One, the Hanged Man, when we look at this in the Tarot de Marseille, and most likely the same sort of meaning in the Tarot Minchiate, we need to think about how the querent is feeling as far as fitting in. In what way do they feel isolated? And of course, we can take the meaning a little further to other connections, including that of a traitor, or even more esoteric ones connected to contemporary decks. This in contemporary tarot is a water element, and I'm feeling that the flow of water in this card, the softness of the second arcanum, the potential, the reflection that is happening here, regardless of how we are interpreting this person is certainly going to be doing some hard thinking. And though the Aquarius card is an air element, we do have a quality of water here. And so, in all of the twos, why might it be important that the majors have some connection to water? And remember that in the element of earth, the earth is a container for the flow of water. Well, all twos can be connected to relationship. And this would be the dynamic energy of a relationship, perhaps the mental energy, the active sexual energy, the passion of a relationship. I love this animal that is featured here, and the antlers make me think of antennae. How important listening and communication is in relationship. Though we don't see ribbons in all of these cards, this knotting of energy, it makes me think of hand fasting and maybe the commitment, the action taken to commit to relationship could be something that is part of the answer to a question. And then looking at the suit of wands, we have a stork perhaps and a fox. And then I want to think about the question, the querent's question. I want to think about how these animals may represent the parties in question. So turning these two animals into the two people that are part of the story of the querent's question. Figure overhead is angelic in the central card, not so much in either of the other ones. It feels like there is an adversary here, perhaps someone who is challenging the relationship, challenging the action. It appears as if this person is almost dancing on these two wands, hoping that this structure that has been created, this connection that has been created in the Two of Wands could fall. It looks as if there's a level of protection here with the animals almost tented underneath. So, is there an adversary in this story? And are there other cards that might speak to what looks like to me an adversary overhead? When I look at the Three of Swords, it makes me think a little bit of the Sun card and an idea of love. So I would certainly want to look for that card in a reading. Whether these children are playing with, being protected by, you may have a sense of danger. I think that the animals in these cards certainly are going to give you more information about a reading. The stars I find very interesting with the energy, the weather changing in the background of this card. I certainly want to pay attention to that. But the stars seem to give a sense of hope that what is being created here, mentally, spiritually, thinking of all of the things that may be associated with the element of air, feels like a turn for the better. There is light at the end of the tunnel, so to speak. There is hope, certainly. In the case of all of these threes, they are either bolted together or tied together. For a period of time at least, there is no question of working together. So if there are three parties involved in the story, and notice we also have three figures here, so I want to pay attention to see if there are three parties involved in the question. In order for this three of fire, this three of creativity to be realized, it makes me think that we need to stick together in order for that to happen, that there's a reason these are bound. And though we saw a binding in the two, it feels like this one is a little more solid. I also am noting here in the suit of baton that the baton, the single baton, the straight baton, is in the back. It's holding up the other two. It is the supporting wand. It's a different color in the Minchiate Florentine, and in the El Signo, this energy feels a little light for an emperor. And what I might pick up on there is that it may be uncomfortable for you being in a position of power or control at this time to be working with others. I'm also noticing the crossed legs here reflected in the cross. So I want to pay attention to other crosses. The cross or an X might be a symbol that the querent can certainly look out for. Death and the three. So this is something that we also see in the Tarot de Marseille, because death doesn't change number, right? It's 13, whichever way you cut it. And so, in order for this thought, idea, this creative experience that you find yourself in to come to fruition, there's going to be some aspect of this that needs to be released. And then, as soon as I said that or thought that, I'm thinking about twin mythology and how, when we're looking at twins, only one will live. So that's another indication that something is going to need to be released in order for the three to be fulfilled. Leo adds strength and confidence. Perhaps it's a reminder that we don't want to let ego get in the way of this threeness of working together. And then we have the element of air, which could make the energy of the Three of Wands or the Three of Swords turn in quite a volatile direction, moving too quickly, not taking time to reflect. I also get a sense of speed in this Minchiate Florentine here in terms of the scythe, the racing. I feel like there's a racing energy here, a real quickness, almost like the delivery of the scythe, that this needs to be taken care of quite quickly. And I think this will take a little bit of time naturally, because when you are working with not only extra cards, but differently numbered cards, readings may be a little slower and a little more reflective. Can I say, unfortunately, these fours do not feel stable at all to me. They feel like they are cards that we really need to pay attention to. I do like this artwork in the Four of Batons. This is, to me, acknowledging the energy between, and we have spiraling and bubble energy here in the Four of Swords. Also note, we have a mythological creature below and an earth creature above, kind of reversing spirit over earth versus earth over spirit. The devil feels rather problematic. Taurus will give a sense of grounding, and I think anything can happen here in the Libra card. Now, as far as a sense of balance, we do have a 2 and a 2 in both the element of fire and the element of air. And so I want to check in with sides. Are there two sides of an issue that need to be addressed mentally or actively? I really like the inclusion of this arcanum in the Tarot Minchiate. It makes me think of another worldly perspective, a wider perspective on life. And I think right now that the devil could use a wider perspective on what's going on here. I also want to go back and think about some of the things I said about the devil card and how this devil may be interpreted differently than in other decks. The playful energy of this deck, the playful energy, the rather mischievous, playful energy of this devil may be a reminder not to take things so seriously. And yet we have this karmic zodiacal card here that makes me feel like these fours may be a very important decision, that the fourness of these wands and swords cards may be more like a gate. Something here is stopping us from passing so that we can reflect, slow down, and make sure that we're heading in the right direction. And I think there's some weight in this being the first zodiacal card as well, that it carries a sense of importance in this particular deck. And how interesting that we have both Venus ruled zodiac signs here. And that feels in conflict with the masculine energy of the suit. So just take a moment to sit with that. How are you going to respond in a different way with the Four of Cups and the Four of Coins? Notice here that with the 4, we had the first zodiacal card in the game of Minchiate. And with the 5, we have the last. And I understand that making sense of the zodiacal order of the cards in this deck is a little tricky, but there's been some interesting connections that you might want to pay attention to. We have Virgo, love, and House of the Devil. In the suit of swords, the stable sword, the sword that pierces the earth, creates a divide between the two animals or the two groups of animals, almost as if it's drawing a line in the sand. And the way that this animal here on the right, here on the left, particularly in the older deck, the way that it is on the box feels a bit like a preacher or a judge, that you, the chicken, are standing in judgment here, stopping at the gate of the 5 of Swords. The fact that this sword pierces the ground really does amplify the sense of let's stop here, let's stop, think, breathe, consider our next step, consider what is going on. Whereas in the suit of batons, in the suit of fire, it feels like these 5 batons are floating. Nothing is touching the ground. And we have these bubbles all around the 5. Also notice the different color, perhaps representing, we have sort of bubbles here as well too, representing an airiness, an indecisiveness, two-sidedness. Both Gemini and Virgo are ruled by Mercury. Could that make this energy more volatile? And should these two 5s show up in a reading together, Gemini and House of the Devil, there would definitely be some major issue in relationship, should that be the aspect of question that you are focusing on. And we see that all of these 5s, well, perhaps not Virgo, speak to relationship. We have Virgo, the Virgin, love, House of the Devil, and some, shall we call it, free love in the Gemini card. Remember, this card is also called Flesh, matters of the flesh. With Mercury being the ruler of both of these signs, this 5 feels rather volatile. And then I can take that a step further and think about how love and lovers in contemporary tarot is the Gemini card itself, ruled by Mercury. And we have a tremendous amount of volatility in the 15th arcanum as well. So I want to be really careful with these 5s and take my time to see what it is they are wanting us to address at this point in our journey. So I hope this helps more than hinders and gives you more tools in reading pip cards. Thank you kindly for being here, and I look forward to your comments. Take good care. Namaste.